Hello, welcome to Road to Recovery, Finding New Purpose in Northern Colorado. My name is Ellie Petrik. I am the Community and Event Specialist for Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm. We're thrilled to have you here. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to start off the event with a brief explanation of what to expect. Joining us will be a few members of our Northern Colorado leadership team. We have Seth Forwood, our Senior Director of Northern Colorado, Jason Bryant, our Director of Fort Collins Rescue Mission, and Steve Pietrafeso, our Evening Supervisor and previous graduate of the New Life program at Harvest Farm. We will also be showcasing a special video of life here at Harvest Farm. And at the end of the event, our Senior Director, Seth, will be leading a Q&A session, so please send in your questions on the chat feature as we go. Before we dive in, I would like to introduce another important member to our operation, and that's Susan Stewart. Susan is our Director of Development for Northern Colorado, and she has been with the mission for over 7 years, and there is no mistaking her passion and love for the people we serve. Susan, thank you for joining.
Ellie, thank you for the great introduction. Such a pleasure to connect with you today. Ellie and I are your development team in Northern Colorado. We are both so grateful to our donors. 2020 has been a year of many unexpected twists and turns. Our donors, volunteers, and supporters have been remarkably generous and encouraging during this time. I'm so thankful for all the ways our Northern Colorado community has rallied and supported us. Thank you so much. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out either to Ellie or to me. We would welcome visiting with you. It's now my pleasure to introduce Seth Forwood, who is our Senior Director in Northern Colorado, leading Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm. He has been a staff member for 15 years. Seth has his license in addiction counseling and his master's degree in social work. He is a proud father of 4 children and someone I've worked with for over 7 years and personally greatly admire. That, I'm turning it over to Seth.
Thank you, Susan. Just to start us off with a quick prayer. This is actually a Franciscan blessing that I first heard from Brad Miley, our CEO, at another event, and I think it's just so appropriate for the times that we're all feeling. So please join me in this prayer. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and turn their pain into joy. And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done, to bring justice and kindness to all our children and to the poor. Amen. Well, I'd like to share just a little bit about myself and then talk about some changes that are happening up in Northern Colorado. So as Susan mentioned, I've been at Harvest Farm for a little bit over 15 years. I started off as an intern, and I was a fall festival cashier. I had a couple of part-time jobs that combined into a full-time job, and I've been in a total of about 4 different positions during my tenure at Harvest Farm. And now I'm overseeing Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm. And I'm really excited about my new position because I'm seeing lots of early benefits in creating a collaboration between Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm, making a a whole community out of these Northern Colorado facilities of Denver Rescue Mission, and seen some new collaborations that happen between our staff, either Harvest Farm staff helping out in some of our operations at Fort Collins Rescue Mission, or our Fort Collins Rescue Mission staff coming out and helping us with our recovery program at Harvest Farm. It's it's true in many different aspects of life that when you pool resources and you have people working together in a new way, you not only notice different opportunities, but you accomplish so much more together. So we've already had a all Northern Colorado staff gathering to kind of inspire a vision to do together as Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm. And we're looking forward to continuing that in October, the end of October, and still on throughout the winter and spring. We did a staff restructure also to enact that unity across Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm. And that includes my position as Senior Director. We have a new Director of Operations, and that's Brad Rhoda. He oversees operations at Harvest Farm and Fort Collins Rescue Mission. We have Clinical Director Randall Sims, who is overseeing the Harvest Farm clinical program. And then finally, we have Jason Bryant as our new Director of Emergency Shelter Services. And I want to give you an update about Harvest Farm and our COVID response the last several months, and some incredible wins that we've seen even during this pandemic. But first, I'll pass it over to Jason, and he can update you about Fort Collins Rescue Mission.
Thank you, Seth, for that introduction. Let me try to give you a little history of what happened with Fort Collins Rescue Mission when the COVID-19 situation came about. We had to make some changes for our guests that were there, and one of those changes was we worked with the community that was there, some of our organization partners there, and they opened the Aslan Recreation Center as a temporary shelter. And we worked with them. Our main part with them was providing meals to the guests, and we would serve there and just try to give support where we could there. After that facility was shut down, we had to make other choices at Fort Collins Rescue Mission on how to handle the population that would come to us. So during the time at Aslan, and since it had ended, we had to adjust for safety and for health, again, for our guests and for the staff. So some of those things that we put in place were that we had a cleaning schedule that we put up, where we recorded hourly as we tried to sanitize and clean the facility, keep it safe for everybody who was there. We also had to put social distancing in place when it comes to sleeping and eating. And so on sleeping, that actually caused us to drop our capacity from about 110 people to 60 people, just so we could keep people at a safe distance. So we designed all that with all the bedding there at Fort Collins Rescue Mission, and that worked very well, kept everyone safe. We also had to do that with meals. So what we ended up doing with meals is we broke it down to where we had 20 people that would eat at once. We would have them come in, sit down, have the trays already there for minimize contacts and interaction. They'd be able to eat and leave, and then we would bring another 20 people in. There was a lot of good efforts that were there from the staff, and I would say that the guests were very responsive in all this and actually enjoyed how everything was going with that. The most positive result we got out of that is that we got 0 positive tests for COVID-19 at Fort Collins Rescue Mission, and we still have that today, but we have not recorded any. And we've had some testing that have come in there through the health department, and again, we've had 0 cases. But all of that kind of prepared us for what we are faced now with the cold weather coming, and 60 beds is a very low number to try to provide when the cold comes. So what we've done is we have joined together with different partners within the community, and we have a new shelter, the Blue Spruce Temporary Shelter, and we are going to be able to increase our beds from 60 to 150 beds. And so that will provide us with the opportunity to ensure that no one has to sleep out in the cold, even with the social distancing. We're also going to be able to provide meals at this facility, and we will have protocol. The one thing I want to I want you guys to know of right now is, even with us making that move up there temporarily, there's still going to be some things in place. We're going to be processing donations as well, and we can still use donations that will come up to that facility, and we will make sure that those donations get to the guest, whether it's clothing or food, make sure that it gets to those who are in need. But I also want to give you guys some assurance that on the cleaning schedule, we have got that in place, where that is going to be an hourly cleaning schedule as well, to make sure that all of the mats that our guests sleep on are cleaned and sanitized, that the floor areas around there, all the high touches, all the tables that are used for eating, everything is going to be constantly sanitized, just to ensure that we have a safe facility for everyone to be in. We do have the mats where people are sleeping are going to be they are already socially distanced. We have it taped off, so it's a clear indication to keep that safe space. For meals, we're also going to make sure we're taking temperatures. We have a hand washing station that we're going to ensure is used, and we will have social distancing things taped off. Again, just to ensure the safety of our guests and the staff and the volunteers that are serving there. I also want you to know that at Fort Collins Rescue Mission, we will be working with the health department to ensure that we have tracing involved. So we'll know who is eating together, who is sleeping together, anytime we need to have that information in response to a test that may happen. So that kind of leads me to the point of the great thing that has happened with this situation, and that is the partnerships that we've developed with other organizations in Fort Collins. We've worked directly with the health department and putting new protocols in place and ensuring that we're using best practices in our approaches. We are working with Catholic Charities. They are going to actually take over housing the women during the winter time, and we'll have just men in our facility, so there'll be a safe location for both populations. And just working with the Murphy Center, they're going to also providing some day services for our guests, so they'll have some options as well. And overall, just working with the city of Fort Collins, it has developed into a relationship with them, as well as we all of us are all working to engage with the needs of the population that is with us. So I'm excited to see how we'll be able to respond in this cold weather, and it will be our goal to provide nothing but the safest and most secure place for those who have the needs that are in our homeless community. So with that, let me turn it back to Seth for an update on Harvest Farm.
Thank you, Jason. It really is incredible the kind of partnerships that we've been able to establish in such a short amount of time to try to address. And Jason and his team at the shelter are incredible at getting everything prepared for that. It's a heavy lift, it's a lot of work, and it's going to be worth it when the weather turns and we need to have a place for people to stay. So Harvest Farm has seen a lot of successes through this time during the pandemic. I would say surprisingly, but I know the staff at Harvest Farm, and I can attest to the hard work that they have always been doing. And during the pandemic, that hasn't changed at all. Since July, I believe. No, sorry, from April to June, we've been able to graduate 15 men from the program. So that's in the thick of the pandemic, with layoffs and unemployment at record numbers. Our men are still able to go out and find work, to find housing, And it's a testament to our staff at Harvest Farm that they have set the foundation before that, and they're able to build on that foundation and get guys into a safe place and continue on their road to recovery and self-sufficiency, even in the midst of the pandemic. Last year, the last fiscal year, that's from July to June, 2019 and 2020, record number of graduations also. We had 51 graduations during that time, and I'm thrilled that we're seeing more and more men graduate and get back on the road to being fathers and husbands and sons and supervisors and employees out in our community. We have changed the program somewhat during this time. We had, during our stay-at-home order, of course, we very much limited where our men could go, and we basically shut down all outside travel except for the essential people who are going to their work, which was difficult. Men in the program are supposed to be building community and relationships. They're supposed to be healing those relationships with their family members. And it's a really difficult thing not to have that connection with their family and their support networks. And so we recognized that. We wanted to keep our community safe. And we've been slowly reopening that travel to allow families to come visit and following all of our health protocols, like taking temperatures and asking the screening questions. And we've let men go off of the farm more and more as we deem safe for our community. And we're seeing that they're able to rebuild and do the work that they need to do during their time at Harvest Farm. During this time, I believe Jason mentioned Fort Collins Rescue Mission has been the single public provider for food for our homeless community. That means that for those who do not have access to food themselves, almost all of them have been coming to Fort Collins Rescue Mission to get a breakfast, get a sack lunch, and to get dinner at the end of the day. And we're excited to be able to welcome more people into our Spruce temporary shelter then through the fall and the winter. And finally, as Jason mentioned also, we are blessed beyond measure to say that we haven't had a single positive COVID case at Harvest Farm among our staff and our participants, just as Fort Collins Rescue Mission hasn't experienced any staff or guests with COVID-19. It's somewhat astounding, but we're so grateful, and I think our health protocols and sanitizing and cleaning really have helped that. And honestly, there's some protection of our facilities that we can't account for, and we're all the more grateful for that. We've been healthy and we've been safe during this time. It reminds me of the story of one of our graduates. Several years ago, I was part of the running team, and I was privileged enough to run with this graduate. He had run competitively in high school, but got out of practice. Addiction takes over his life, and a lot of the passion that he had for things was lost. But at Harvest Farm, he was able to regain that passion for running. Soon he ran much faster and much longer than I could keep up with, but whenever we would go out to races, I would run the 5K, and he'd often be running the half marathon or marathon. And he continued that after graduating. He kept up that discipline. He kept up that passion. And lately he's been running ultra marathons. These are 50 or 100-mile races. And I think the ultra marathon is a wonderful metaphor for what our participants and guests are experiencing and what our staff experience right now. I remember back in March and February or March seeing a headline on a newspaper that said we would most likely be experiencing this pandemic through August, and I could not believe it at the time. I couldn't fathom something lasting that long, and here we are in October, still experiencing much of the effects of COVID-19 and the health restrictions and protocols. And in an ultra marathon, you have high-performing athletes that are usually very highly competitive, but the enormity of the race itself is so daunting, it's so difficult and arduous that everyone who enrolls in these races knows that simply to finish is an accomplishment. And in other races, if you saw somebody fall or falter, usually that would be an excellent opportunity to pass somebody up and get a higher ranking, but not in ultramarathon races. In ultramarathons, it is a common practice that if you see somebody fall or to the side of the trail or path, you stop and you ask if they need anything, and you share resources. You help them up, or you help them stretch out a cramping muscle, because everyone in that race knows that if they can help somebody finish that race, and maybe not even get the ranking that they could if they blew on past that person, it's worth it because of the difficulty of everyone's circumstances. And I share this with our staff because this is what we're seeing with the renewed unity that Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm is forging. We're seeing that rather than just being parallel facilities where we do our thing and they do their thing, we're able to address the needs that we have to support and encourage each other. And just like an ultramarathon race, we're going to do that until we finish, until we cross that finish line and we have that accomplishment of persevering through difficulty, sometimes mustering the courage to get through fearful times. Sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down and taking a break and hearing somebody say a hopeful word that gets us through the day. So I wanted to share that ultramarathon metaphor with you all. I'm sure you're going through similar experiences where you're wondering how long this is going to last. You're wondering when the finish line is going to come, and it may be miles off. But I encourage you all to see it through, to fight the good fight and finish the race strong. And that's what we'll be doing in Northern Colorado at Harvest Farm and at Fort Collins Rescue Mission. We're going to finish this race strong, and we don't know quite what it'll look like. There's lots of new things that we're going to be learning and doing with the Blue Spruce Temporary Shelter. And we're excited that you all can be a part of it, even if it's just through a live event like this. I want to end with my section with introducing a video that we made several weeks ago. It's called The Road to Recovery, and I hope you all enjoy it.
So when I was growing up, I didn't really have the most stable childhood. We bounced around from state to state probably every 6 months to a year because my father also had an addiction. For multiple years, I didn't think I had a drinking problem, but throughout the years as time progressed and went on, I realized that I started drinking more and more to kind of cover up the feelings that I had inside me and just try to get away from the world and block everything out. I felt like I was at my lowest with my drinking when I was taken in for my DWAI. I was brought into jail. I had to spend a good 2 to 3 weeks there, and the only thing I could think about was getting back out and having that drink again. And as soon as I got back out, I lost my family, I lost contact with my kids, and I realized that if I kept up on this path that I was going to end up alone and probably dead early for no reason, just like my father. So I decided to go ahead and take the next step, which was coming here to Harvest Farms.
I'm Seth Forwood. I'm the Senior Director at Fort Collins Rescue Mission and Harvest Farm. Harvest Farm is a 100-acre farm. It's a working farm. It has animals, goats, cows, tractors, barns. And the purpose of it is to provide a refuge for men who are trying to escape addiction and homelessness. Harvest Farm provides a refuge for up to 72 men. We work with those men on all the parts of life that they need work on. Men come to us with complex issues, and so we have a lot of different ways that we try to address those issues. And at the heart of that is their spiritual development. Recovery has to have some kind of spiritual awakening for it to be long-lasting, and we meet our men where they're at.
So I graduated the program 9 years ago, and I came to the farm when I was in a dark place in my life, and the farm taught me a new freedom. So I connect with them on a lived experience basis. I look at them as we're equals. We're on this recovery journey together, and I think we connect well, and I connect well with the guys doing it.
Harvest Farm is a refuge. You know, it's in rural Colorado, and it needs to be a refuge. And Fort Collins Rescue Mission is embedded right in the middle of Fort Collins. Community support is vital to our work at Harvest Farm. That could be churches that welcome our men into their services. It could be a small group, or it could be individual people sacrificing their time or sacrificing their money to keep our program going. But we cannot do Harvest Farm without our surrounding community.
The phases are 3 phases. They come in at an orientation phase, which is kind of a grounding phase to get acclimated to the program. 2 months into it, they go into what we call foundation. Foundation is kind of when the program starts, technically, with life skills and education classes, where they're going to that 3 days a week. They do that for 10 weeks. Once they get done with that, they graduate and go into the transition phase, which is the work phase, where they actually go out and find a job. They work up to 7 more months and save all their money while they're living here. So when they do graduate, they've got a nest egg in the bank. It's just a better chance of starting.
When I first got here, I didn't realize how open and free it really was. I don't think that I could have ever opened up as much as I have in this process if all these people weren't willing to open up themselves. I love the fact that I get to do such big elaborate meals and cook for 70 guys a day. I've actually been able to save my marriage with my wife. We're actually going on counseling here, and then I've been able to see my daughter about 6 to 7 times already through visitation and her coming to the farm. And just last week we had a tea party, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've actually been able to do with her.
Dan has changed because Dan has the want and the will to change. And he's stuck to his goals, and he's serious about his recovery. And I see him continuing that after he leaves as well.
It's incredible to see how with one life transformed, it goes on to transform a whole family, a whole church, and a whole community.
Hi everybody, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. My name is Steve Pietrafeso. I'm the program coordinator, evening supervisor at Harvest Farm. I'm honored to be here with you guys and explain to you what kind of work we do at Harvest Farm, and also give a little bit of my story why Harvest Farm is so important to me, being a graduate of 2012. Let me start off by saying what I do here. So the program coordinator at Harvest Farm is responsible for all evening and weekend shifts. There's a team of 3 of us, and we also have 3 peer leaders that are graduates of the farm also that volunteer time at Harvest Farm. We make sure everything runs great after hours and weekends. Under Seth's leadership, shift used to be we just make sure everybody was doing what they're supposed to be doing and kind of making sure the place didn't burn down. What we do now is we bring programs into the evening, and we bring Bible studies, we bring Narcotics Anonymous meetings in, We take guys to stores. We spend time in the dorms. We do a lot as far as just being there for the guys. My whole team are all men who have lived experience in addiction or alcoholism, so we can relate a little bit better, or I'd hope we relate a little bit better with the population that we're serving here at Harvest Farm. As I said earlier, my story, I go back to 2011 to Harvest Farm as a graduate. I got here in 11 and graduated in 12. But I'd like to take a minute and kind of explain the importance of Harvest Farm and give you my story. I'll start off by saying I'm 53 years old. I started using drugs at 40. My story is a little unique, and I used to be somewhat embarrassed to tell my story because I had such a great childhood growing up, and it was embarrassing, but I'm not embarrassed of it anymore. I'm super proud of it because I can show people how addiction can take anybody at any time. So I was raised in Arvada, Colorado, by my parents. There were 4 of us. I'm the second oldest. My dad is a retired narcotics detective for the Denver Police Department. So growing up, drugs weren't an option. Drinking wasn't an option. We were very well accountable for our actions, and we grew up that way. So I graduated Arvada High School in 1985. I decided I didn't want to go to college to a career in the police department and kind of follow my dad's footsteps. So I tried to test that next year after graduation, and I didn't score high enough, and I was told to try back the next year. So I went and thought, I'll go sell cars for a year. So at 19 years old, I went and sold cars for a year. And after that first year, I never looked back. I went, wow, this is really good money. And I was really good at it. And I thought, I'm gonna continue this. So I sold cars for 2 years, and I quickly elevated myself into the finance department as a finance manager. And I did that for the next 23 years, basically, as a finance manager, finance director at 3 different dealerships in the Denver metro area. Back in the 80s, early 90s, drugs and alcohol were pretty prevalent in the car business. And with my upbringing, I stayed away from a lot of it. It wasn't until about 20 plus years into it that I was at a party. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday, and I was trying to recruit a new salesman, and he asked me inadvertently, do you do party favors? And I said, sure I do, just trying to fit in. And I tried cocaine. Immediately I was kind of like the poster child, why not to try it again? Or why not to ever try it? And I quickly became addicted to this drug, and cocaine's the only drug I've ever used. In about 90 days, my life started falling apart. My marriage started falling apart. I was with the same girl for about 17 years. Stepfather, 2 girls. Things started unraveling, and people started noticing that I was different. And I went to my family and said, hey, I got a problem. And we went to a 30-day drug rehab in Parker. Being a family of law enforcement, so now my dad's retired and my younger brother's on the SWAT team for Denver. So they were very supportive of what I was doing, being going to rehab. Well, I lasted about 45 minutes after the 30-day rehab, and I relapsed. And it was an ongoing thing for about the next several years, in and out, not of rehabs, but just family to family. And they quickly learned that all we're doing is enabling Steve. And my mom finally put her foot down and says, you're not staying here. You either need to get clean and sober. And so I did for about a couple of years. A couple of years later, around 2008, 2009, I relapsed, and it started affecting my marriage to where I was given that one ultimatum going, hey, if this door opens again, we're done. And unfortunately, that door opened again, and I came home to the door's locked. Literally, the locks changed. It was in the middle of the night. It was in June of 2011. She quickly called the Arvada police. They came to my house and they said, you need to leave. And this officer was kind enough to give me a ride to the Denver Rescue Mission, where I knew an employee that I used to work with in the car business. Lenny Ford worked there, and I went to Lenny and said, I need help. And Lenny got me into the New Life program. I was going to go to the Crossing in Denver. And back then you staged at our Lawrence Street facility. So I stayed there for a night, and I couldn't deal with it. They were right out the door doing the drug that I used. And some people from the farm were down there that evening dropping somebody off, and they said, you need to call the farm. So I called the farm, and ironically, the guy said, hey, we just dismissed a couple people, and you can come up tomorrow. So my journey began with Harvest Farm in June 2011. And I came up here, and I quickly, I didn't want to live the way I was living anymore. My life I was in a dark place. I didn't know what was going to happen to my marriage. My family was done dealing with all of my nonsense, and I didn't have anywhere to go. So at that point, I was willing to go to any length to get clean and sober. And I met people up here like Seth and like Brad Rhoda and Jason Bryant. And, I got a sponsor, and I started doing the work, and I went through the farm, and I was actually here for 15 months. And, man, I learned so much. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about addiction and what it does. And they taught me to put addiction number one in my life. And, I was told addiction's number one and nothing else gets a number. And I used to wonder why that was, and why before family, and why before everything else. And without that recovery up here, none of that matters. So I've stood by that, and I'm very grateful for the farm and what it did for me. And I graduated, and several years later, I was asked to come back, and here I am. So people ask, what all do you do at the farm? And it's hard for me to answer that, because I do so much here, because I'm so passionate about what the farm does and how we do our work for the men that come through here. And I love these guys. And, I could quickly go back into the auto industry and make a lot more money than what I do here, but it's not. I want to show guys the freedom that I found. And I found that through Harvest Farm, and I found that through the staff at Harvest Farm. I'm honored to be able to talk to all of our intake guys that come through with Kyle, our intake specialist. And I tell them, I want to show you guys the freedom that I found, and I found it through Harvest Farm. And it's a beautiful place. It changed my life. I watch it every day change the lives of others, and it's just somewhere that I'm very passionate about. I love my coworkers. I love the Denver Rescue Mission. I'm a lifer. I'll be here until they make me leave. So I appreciate your guys' time. I'm going to turn this back over to Seth for some questions and answers, and I hope you guys enjoyed this.
Thank you, Steve. We really do appreciate you being able to open up and tell your story. That was wonderful. We are thrilled to have you on the team. This begins our Q&A portion. So if you still have questions, please submit them on the chat feature. We have a few coming in, so we're just going to dive right into that. Seth will be answering those. Thank you, Seth. The first one, it looks like we have a question. Nathan has said, I've heard that there has been a rapid increase in the teaching of the gospel at Saturday afternoon Bible study at Harvest Farm and has caught Holy Spirit fire. Are there discipleship opportunities?
Yes. So we have lots of offerings for our guys. We try to meet them where they're at, and that includes with recovery and spirituality, and however else we can encourage them to the next step of health and well-being. And one of those is, a voluntary Bible study that happens on Saturday night. And just to clarify also, we're a faith-based program, and that really infuses our work. And for men to succeed and graduate the program, we don't require any kind of faith commitment from them. We really want to love and care for them where they're at, and encourage them to find a faith of their own. So discipleship is a really important part of our men's programs, and we've seen guys that find a new faith that they never experienced before, or reinvigorate a kind of lost faith during their time in the program. And other men, their spiritual awakening looks like having a mentor and sharing their life, or having a small group that they commit to and are a part of. So thanks for that question. There's lots of discipleship opportunities. There's lots of opportunities for people who don't have a faith to explore that and to continue on towards self-sufficiency.
Wonderful. Thank you, Seth. Moving right along to the next question. It looks like, how does Harvest Farm encourage those of different faith traditions, Muslims, Jews, or even atheists?
It's a great question, too. And it's part of our mission statement to meet people at their physical and spiritual points of need. And we take that very seriously. That if faith infuses us to do anything, it is to care and love for men right where they're at, rather than setting up barricades or barriers for their health and healing. And so we have men who come through with many different types of faith, and many men who come through with no faith at all. And it's been a really incredible thing. I can remember one graduate who came in a devout atheist and graduated a devout atheist. And I had lots of conversations with him. And at his graduation speech, he quoted the famous atheist philosopher Nietzsche, and he also quoted some meaningful Bible verses that that meant a lot to him through his time here, even though he still did not commit to any kind of faith. And I think that's a testament to the staff and the participants, that we're able to forge a healthy community where people are known and people belong. And there's the only prerequisite is that you have to admit that you need to do some work while you're here. And if guys have that attitude, then all of our staff are really willing to work with them and see what we can do together.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. We've got one more question. It looks like you had said that the new temporary shelter will just be a shelter for men. You may have already said this already, but who will be sheltering women? And can you elaborate on the community agencies in Fort Collins that you work alongside with?
So, yeah, we will be providing shelter just for men during the fall and winter. Our really great partners at Catholic Charities have agreed to provide shelter for the women who are experiencing homelessness in our community. And both of us, Catholic Charities and Fort Collins Rescue Mission, kind of recognize the daunting nature of having a lot more people in one facility in our pandemic. And so we're working very closely with the health department. We're working closely with Health District and Murphy Center and Homeward Alliance. Our partners who work more on the resource center and day shelter side of things, because we'll be having to work closely with the same people, just sheltering them during different times of the day.
Wonderful. Well, that wraps up our time. Thank you, Seth, for our answers and your wisdom during this Q&A session. Truly, we do appreciate all that you've done. And thank you all who has submitted those questions. We do hope that we were able to answer a few of those. Unfortunately, that concludes our time for our live event. Before we sign off, I wanted to just express a huge thank you to all of you watching. We greatly appreciate your support and your generosity. It means so much. We hope you enjoyed a closer look on what's happening in Northern Colorado. And for those of you who did sign up to receive the special gift box, I hope you enjoy a little taste of Harvest Farm. Susan, Jason, Steve, and Seth, thank you so much for your participation this evening and for all you do for Fort Collins Rescue Mission, Harvest Farm, and the guests we serve. One final announcement. We will be sending out an email with the recording of this live event in case you wanted to pass it along, revisit, or send it to loved ones. You will also receive a link to a survey for us to give us feedback on this event. We hope that you will take 2 minutes to revisit that or fill it in and give us what you think. So thank you all again for joining us, and may you have a wonderful evening. Lord bless you and keep you.